Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to our banner review video. I decided to do a video for these basically because I've seen a lot of comments on the banners and I kind of disagree with a lot of it, so let's just get right to business. Let's start with the characters. This is a pretty bad banner when it comes to the 4-star characters. Many people will pull for a character whether or not they want the 4-star characters, and while that's like completely fine, right? If you want a 5-star characters, that's like you probably don't want to wait another half year to up to like, I don't know, a year, maybe even 2 before the next time your favorite character gets rerun. Like, I get that. But very often, people kind of just disregard the 4 stars too much and then end up pulling a bunch of the 4 stars that are just kind of bad and not using them. And then the 4 stars that they use are at C0 or at C1 or at C2. This banner is very, very unfortunate with the 4 stars because not only are they not that great, but also you're probably not playing Sayu or Rosaria with Raiden or Ayato. So it's a bit less likely that you actually want the 4 stars. Sarah is honestly really, really bad before C6. You can play her, she's just a worse option than basically everything else. And then once she gets to C6, she's a potential option in Raiden teams and basically in Raiden teams only. And even then, she's not even the best option most of the time. She only really becomes like actually the best option when you have like a C2, C3 Raiden and C6 Sarah. Because at that point, the attack and crit damage buff that you're getting from Sarah on your Raiden, because your Raiden gets so much defense shred and higher motion values, just starts going, like, it gains a lot of value. Raiden's constellations don't just multiply her damage, they also multiply the damage that you gain from Sarah, right? So that's kind of the only real situation where I consider Sarah to be a unit that's like all that good. Obviously, if you just like the concept of a hyper team, you like big numbers, you can still use her without her C6. But it's just not something that I would generally recommend if that's not the case. Rosaria can be good, but I'd say that her biggest issue now is kind of just that most of the like free-to-play friendly good, or the good free-to-play teams, the ones with only 4 stars, with the release of Dendro, Rosaria's not in too many of them anymore, right? Your better options generally revolve more around Hyper Bloom, Taser, Burgeon even, than they do around Melt or Freeze, which kind of makes her value go down. She's still a fine unit, but there's more fine units now, and I'd say that arguably Rosaria isn't in the top half of the 4 stars anymore. Finally, Sayu's never been that great. Like, she's an Anemo unit which can have VV while also being a healer. She's got nice overall exploration, but the main thing about her is like, you're never really playing her in optimal teams. You're kind of just playing her because it's, wow, gotta go fast, cool. But you don't need constellations for that. Like, she does that at C0. Her E works at C0 and constellations don't increase her duration of her E. So it kind of doesn't matter if you have multiple copies of her only one. Which means that like all of these 4 stars are kind of just not that great. Rosaria is arguably the best out of them, but even then I'd say that with the release of Dendro, like her appeal kind of went down a bit. I still use her on my free-to-play account. I have an Ayaka team where I do use her, and like she is good, but like she's not one of the like great 4 stars that you are very happy with on the banner. She's like one you're okay with if the other 2 are good, but the other 2 are not, which means that yeah, overall when it comes to the 4 stars, not that great. Now let's talk about the weapon banner. Both of the 5-star weapons are actually somewhat valuable. I'd say that Haran is pretty good on a bunch of sword characters, and Engulfing is pretty good on a bunch of full-arm users. Engulfing is also the best in slot for Raiden, although I would say that very often people overrate how good it is, and overrate like the amount of damage that you get from going from Catch to Engulfing on Raiden, for example. I have an Ask Zajef Raiden, which I don't know if it's gonna come out before or after this video, where I talk about Engulfing, and really like, because you so often play Raiden with Bennett, then that makes it so that the fact that Haran gives you a lot of attack kind of isn't as good as it otherwise could be. Which means that instead of being the like 30-40% ahead of all of the other options that it is when you don't have external attack buffs, once you actually get external attack buffs, it's closer to a 15 to 20. Did I say Haran? Sorry, Engulfing. My bad. But it's just not as valuable as a lot of people think it is. Haran is pretty good, but it's also like only one of many swords, and it's not really like far above the other 5-star swords, so it's kind of a underwhelming option compared to some of the other swords that you could have. That being said though, like these weapons are still probably above average when it comes to 5-star weapons, right? When you keep in mind that there's all the Skyward weapons, most of which are not that ideal. Stuff like Wolf's Gravestone that can be good in some situations, but often isn't that insane. When you look at all of that, then these weapons are both above average, with Engulfing being like among the better weapons weapons for sure. But yeah, like they're not like the best possible banner and pretty far from it. My biggest issue with this banner though is not the 5-star weapons, it's actually the 4-star weapons. It's aggressively mediocre. Favalance is very good, but here's the problem with this, okay? Moon's Moon isn't actually good. Like it is a good weapon, it has good stats, it's good, but like it's barely better than any of the other options for anyone really. Lion's Roar, kind of the same thing. And Aquamaru, very often, kind of the same thing. Sac Frag is pretty good, but you generally don't actually need that many refinements on it. And then Favalance is good and you like refinements on it. Which means that it has an okay catalyst, an okay claymore, an okay bow, and an okay sword. And then a good polearm. But like, that's a lot of okay, and not a lot of good, right? When it comes to good, the kind of stuff that you actually want to see, you want to see Fav or Stringless for the bow. So maybe Ali Hunter works as well, right? For the sword, generally like Fav is the best. Zyphos now would be okay, like what would be good. Then for books, there's kind of not a good 4-star book. Like Widsith is good, I guess, but only if you have a damage dealing catalyst users, and there's not that many of those. Although now there's a bit more, so that's that. And then there's not really that many good claymores. So like Akumaru is one of the better claymores. It's just that most of the time the claymores don't matter on the banner, because for most claymore users, either you just don't use them or you use Fav on them, or if you have it, you use Serpent Spine. That being said though, Akumaru is still a fine option, like if you don't have Serpent Spine and you're using a claymore character that's supposed to be focused on burst damage, right? Like Beto, for example. But yeah, it's overall, it's just very, very like aggressively mediocre. Incredibly okay, right? Those are basically my thoughts on this banner. People use mid as like a joke. When they drip marketed Hytham, I quote retweeted just with mid. I just said mid. Made a lot of people very angry, violent, rabid. But yeah, right? Like, but mostly mid is used like as a joke, right? But unironically, this banner is mid. That's kind of what it is. That being said though, if there's a specific thing you really want on this banner, and please, by the way, it doesn't work for 4-star weapons. If there is a 4-star weapon that you want, you will not get it. I am telling you right now, okay? You will not get it. Don't hold out any hope. The only reason to go for a weapon banner is either you want all 5 of the weapons, so any of them would be good, or you really, really want one of the 5 stars and have enough primos to guarantee it, and then the 4 stars are generally above average or something that you don't mind too much. Because it's so many primo gems. Weapon banner rates are garbage. And because there's so many rate ups, then it's the odds that you actually get the rate up you want are shit. So that does it for review on the banners for the second half of 3.3. Stay tuned, subscribe, come watch me on Twitch. Ask the Jeff Ayato is likely going to be delayed until like the first week of the banner because I forgot to do it earlier. It is what it is. But yeah, stay tuned for that if you're interested, and I'll see you guys around. Bye, YouTube.